Welcome back. This week I'm gonna start working on a bunch of stuff in the back of the car. Got the fuel cell to mount. The water tank is gonna go probably where the back seat would have been, and then the rad is also going in the back underneath the fuel cell. The fuel cell fits perfect in between the shock cross member and the back of the roll cage. It's a 13-gallon aluminum cell from Performance World. It is sumped, but I'm not going to run an external pump. I'm going to run a drop-in unit that has 2 fuel pumps on it. So I don't need to worry about the sump. I'll just block these off. It's got a fuel level sensor on it already. So I'm going to use some of this 1-inch square tubing and build a little cage around the cell with tabs that the cell can bolt onto, and then I can also build more tabs off of that cage to mount the rad, as well as I'll build some tabs coming off the shock cross member bar and this rear roll cage bar, and then I can bolt that cage basically into the back of the car, so that if I ever need to service things on it or drop it out, it'll be 4 bolts and the fuel cell can come out of the bottom of the car, and so can the rad. Shouldn't need to, because with that drop-in unit that I'm gonna use, that'll be basically the entire fuel system will just pull out from the top of the fuel cell, so it'll be really easy to service. But I also have this is a ice tank from Rhodes Race Cars. It's already got a Rule 2000 just like marine pump in it. So haven't totally figured out yet where I'm gonna mount this, but I'm thinking it's gonna go somewhere on the back seat, just because it'll still be pretty easy to just reach around the seat and dump ice in it or fill it up with water. But for the meantime, I'm going to start working on that cage around the fuel cell, and I'll get some tabs in it and then put it up under the car, and then I can see where I got to build the tabs off the roll cage and the shock cross member. Okay, I've been working on the fuel cell mount for a few days now, going back and forth. I've tried a bunch of different ways that I had thought about it in my head, and none of them really working how I thought. Originally I wanted to mount the fuel cell above the bar for the shock cross member and the roll cage, but the problem with that is it's going to make the tin work really difficult, because I built these mounts just with some 3/4 inch rectangle tube and some tabs that I've welded on to bolt the actual tank to, and I want these kind of rails to run along the side of the tank, because then I can use them to build mounts off of to hold up the rad, which is going to be in the back. But with the way this is right now, these bars are above the level of the floor. The sump is like right in the middle of the level of the floor, so closing this whole back end of the car in with the sheet metal or aluminum is going to be really tricky, because there's going to be 100 things to have to build it around. So I think I'm going to lift the tank up from the bottom instead, and that'll make the tin work easier, but then that has its own few problems that I'll show you here. Okay, so with the tank raised from the bottom, it sits nice and low, which I like, because it just gives more room for everything. But I need to make some kind of mounts that go from the shock cross member or the roll cage down to the tank, and that's not a difficult thing to do, but I'm trying to keep in mind servicing this, and because of the tabs on the tank, I can't lift the tank up out of the back. I need to drop it down, And I thought about cutting the tabs off the tank itself and re-welding them on the side, but I don't really want to get into that because this tank's had fuel in it before, and it's a really specific procedure on cleaning the tank out and, you know, filling it with the gas to purge all the oxygen out of it, and I just don't really want to do that. So I'm just gonna come up with some kind of tab that I can weld on the shock cross member and probably on the bottom side of this bar for the cage that will bolt into these side rails that are going to support the fuel cell, so that if I ever need to service things, I can drop it out. So I'm going to keep working on that, and I'll update you once I figure out how I'm going to build some sort of tab to support the tank, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so I built up 4 of these tabs. So I just bent them up and then welded in some support on each side, so they should be plenty strong. And then I think all I'm gonna do is I'll clean these up and I'll weld one of these on each corner, and then when I lift the tank up from the bottom, I can build a bracket that I can weld around the rear bar of the cage and the shock cross member, and it'll bolt right through, and I think it should be plenty strong to support the fuel cell. It's only 13 gallons, so even full of fuel it'll only be about 100 pounds. So I am gonna go ahead and clean this up. I'll weld these on and then put it back in the car, and then figure out and build some tabs off the cage, and that should finish up the fuel cell mount and make this a little simpler and easy to service. Okay, all those 4 tabs are welded on the tank now on both sides, and they came out pretty good. And then I just drew up a little bracket like this that I'm gonna make 2 of, and it'll bolt into those tabs I made, and I can also weld it around the shock cross member, and I can kind of do the same thing down here. I just need to shorten it. But to start, I'll make 2 of these and see how they work, and like I said, then I can bolt this to the tank, or to the bracket on the tank, and weld the end to the shock cross member. Okay, so these are the tabs I was talking about that I built. So they fit perfectly around the shock cross member, and then they bolt on to the little frame around the fuel cell. I just have both of these tabs just tacked in on the very top right now, and then I got the tank as level as I can get it. It's not perfect because the top of this tank isn't exactly flat, but it is good enough, and it's pretty level front to back as well. So now that it's all leveled off and it's not really moving because these tabs are locating it, I'm gonna just do the same thing on the back here, build 2 more tabs like that I could weld onto the back of the cage, and then I should be able to fully weld both those front and rear tabs in and bolt it in. The finished up mounts look like. You can see the tabs welded on the shock cross member to the rear of the roll cage, and then I can lift the tank up from the bottom. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out actually, and it should be plenty strong. I mean, I can stand on it, and I weigh a lot more than what a 13-gallon fuel cell full of fuel weighs, so It should work out good. I'm gonna start now on that water tank and figure out if I want it in the back seat, and then I can build up some quick mounts for that. I have some aluminum showing up tomorrow too, to build a firewall, and then like I had mentioned before, I want to try to retain the stock plastics. I'll just have to figure out how to notch them to clear the mini tubs, and then I can close off this whole back area and build that firewall. Okay, now that the fuel cell is done, I'm going to work on the ice tank, get it mounted. I put the fuel cell back in, and yeah, I'm happy with it. It's super strong. The water and ice tank, I think I'm going to put kind of just over top of the trans tunnel behind the seats. It's easy enough to fill it. And then I could put a bulkhead fitting in the floor, and I'll put a drain valve on the front of the tank here, and then I can just drain it right onto the ground if I need. I was thinking of mounting it just ahead of the fuel cell, because then it would be really easy to fill it with ice and water, but I want the whole view out of the hatch, and if I put it there, the firewall I'll have to build would be really far forward, and it would block off some of the hatch out of the rear view mirror, whereas with the tank now I can have a really low profile kind of firewall that starts far forward and comes up here, and I'll still have the full view out of the back. So I'm going to mount it forward in the floor. This is like 12-inch by 12-inch square, so I'm going to cut some square tubing and build kind of a little cage that I can weld tabs to, and then I'll figure out, once I get the cage built, I'll either build brackets so that I can drill holes and bolt it to the floor, or I'll just put tabs on it and weld it right to the floor. I haven't figured out yet. I'll have to see kind of what it looks like when I put it in there. Because it's going to be right on the hump, it'll kind of be tricky to find a lot of places to weld it to without building some more brackets, and I can't really move it to either side because the torque box bars for the roll cage kind of get into the way just as bad. So I'll start building that cage around the tank and put it in the car and kind of see what it looks like and if it's gonna work out. The water tank mount is done. I'm not going to attach it to the floor yet. I'm going to wait to see how the tin work ends up when I kind of make a rear seat delete to see how I want to attach it. But I got that little cage welded up, and then I also got nuts just welded on the back side of the tab so that in case this ends up being below the level of the tin work, I don't need to worry about getting a nut on the bottom side. There's already one captured there. I'll start on the tin work next and finish welding up in the subframe connectors and the roll cage. But that'll be all for this video, so thank you for watching.